to the changing face of our Congress. As of now, there are fewer than 100 military veterans in both the U.S. House and Senate. That's less than 20% of Capitol Hill. Compare that to the 70s, when around 75% of Congress was made up of veterans. Now, one group is pushing for change, looking to get more veterans and others who've taken part in national service programs to try their hand at politics. Joining me now is Emily Cherniack, founder and executive director of that group called New Politics. Nice to meet you, Emily.
Thanks.
And one of her big success stories, you may have heard of him, Democratic Congressman Seth Moulton. Congressman, it's good to see you.
Great to be back.
Would you be there if she hadn't urged you, I hear repeatedly, to do this thing?
Absolutely not. I mean,
Really?
I wasn't even interested. I wasn't in any political groups in school. I never volunteered for a campaign. She called me up after business school and said that I should run for Congress.
What'd she say to you that convinced you?
She said, look, there's a great race. Your own congressman in the 6th District of Massachusetts is in a weak position. Really, we should have a better representative up there. You'd be the perfect person to run.
Why were you the perfect person?
I said, no way. I'm not interested in politics. I was literally living in Texas at the time working on this high-speed rail project.
So, is that your recollection, what you said to him?
Yeah.
And he wasn't an easy
said,
sell, from what I understand.
No, but I'm very persistent.
Okay,
so I
and
kept bothering
seriously,
him.
what was the sell that ultimately caused him to say, okay, I'll give this a go?
I mean, I was sort of saying that I was going to be with you the whole way, and there's a path here, and I wasn't someone that just said you should run and then left. Like, I was really kind of in it.
But why does the service background, whether it's in the civil sector, Peace Corps, AmeriCorps, you were a City Year kid, as was my daughter, by the way, very proudly, or military service, why is that relevant, or why does it make him a better person to serve this country in Congress?
I think people who have served in these types of programs really have learned how to put the country first and the community first, and it's not about them. They have servant leadership skills. And so people like Congressman Moulton really want to serve their country again, and they think about it in a really different way.
Yeah, but can I tell you why it's a bad idea, even though I love the idea?
Sure.
The most amazing story I ever read about him, and I've read a lot, and I'm sure you read it too, he's running against, in the final, a Globe story by Walter Robinson, the great reporter, who we all have now seen on screen, shows this guy won medals for among his 4 tours of duty. Not only did he never tell the voters, and you're supposed to sell yourself, he never told his parents. Isn't the lack of ego on the part of a lot of people, he doesn't like hearing this, so just turn away. I mean, isn't the lack of ego in a lot of these people a problem in terms of selling yourself to the public?
No, I mean, I think it's more powerful. I mean, that story was powerful because he didn't talk about those
It might never have come out.
Campaign trail, but he won without it. He didn't need it, right? And so I think these servant leaders are really about country first, and that's why they're so amazing, and people feel that.
Is that why you think this is such a... You have a buddy who's been here with you, Joe Kennedy, who was in the Peace Corps.
Exactly.
Obviously.
Same thing.
So what makes him and you, I don't know if better, but better prepared to do what Emily's talking about, do you think, Congressman?
Well, I think we just come to Congress with a sense that we're there to serve the people we represent and to serve our country, because we've been a part of a program in the past where we had to do that. When I was in the Marines, I had Marines in my platoon from all over the country, from Massachusetts and Vermont, but also Alabama and Texas, from a gated community outside of Park City, Utah, and inner city Brooklyn, New York. We came together with remarkably different backgrounds, different religious beliefs, different political beliefs, but at the end of the day, we were able to set aside those differences to do what's best for the country. And frankly, that's what Americans should expect of Congress as well.
I said at the top, fewer than 20% of the members of Congress, down from a real high in the 70s, are military veterans. When I first met you, I didn't think it was that important. But when I see how disengaged the vast majority of us are, the non-veterans, from the lives of the families who have people like you and others serving in harm's way, that is a problem, isn't it, if there aren't a decent number of people who've had that experience in Congress?
I think that's right. It shouldn't be a litmus test. You have to be a veteran to run.
Mm-hmm.
But, I mean, one of the most sacred duties that we have as members of Congress is deciding when to put the lives of young Americans in harm's way overseas. That's a responsibility that I take incredibly seriously. It comes back to why I ran in the first place, because I was in Iraq in a war where I saw a lot of politically based decisions made in Washington by people who I think didn't understand what it's like to be a soldier or Marine on the front line.
So has he helped you recruit other people? I mean, yes?
Absolutely.
And so you're running people around the country, or what are you doing?
Yes, we have 22 candidates this cycle.
You do?
And they're from city council to Congress. And we're about building a pipeline of servant leaders who will change our country by being amazing political leaders.
I'm going to get back to you in a second. I want to talk to you about just a couple of quick issues, Congressman, if I can. You made some pretty powerful statements of late. One, you said that if Donald Trump was president, you accused him of treasonous policies. You might not have decided to serve to begin with. But at the same time, you spoke eloquently about the death of your best friend in the Iraqi army at the hands of ISIS, and said as a result of failed policies by the Obama administration. You went on to say the tragedy is that today we're sending troops back in Iraq under the same president who promised to pull them out, in light of the fact that he apparently doesn't get it either. If today you were that same young man, would you choose to serve in the military under Barack Obama?
Absolutely.
Why?
Because Barack Obama may not have the perfect policies in the Middle East, but he's someone you can work with to change those policies. I can work with his administration, and the administration is listening to my critique that we have to have a political plan, not just a military plan. Donald Trump isn't interested in listening to anyone, and he talks about things that are fundamentally unconstitutional, like discriminating on people based on their religion.
I want to talk about one other cooperative or lack of cooperative thing, if I can, in Congress. This puts me totally over the edge. There was this almost orgasmic celebration in Washington after all these opioid-related bills passed, many of which were sponsored by people like you and your fellow Massachusetts congressmen. And we're all saying how great that is, bipartisan. And then all of a sudden we find out there's one problem, not one nickel of funding for any of these things. How do you deal with this? I mean, one, is that going to get fixed? And how do you not decide, she gave me bad advice a couple of years ago, I'm in the wrong business? I'm serious about that.
Look, it's a fair question. It can be very easy to get frustrated in Washington today. There's not a lot of leadership. And when people come to me and they say, Seth, how can Congress be so stupid? Why does Congress not believe in climate change or whatever else? My observation is actually most of my colleagues are pretty smart, but what's lacking in Washington today is courage. It's just the courage to vote the way you know is right, to support funding, even when it means some hard political decisions back home. That's what's really lacking today, and I think that more service veterans from places like City Year, the Peace Corps, the Marine Corps, I think we can help change that.
Speaking of that, this is your pet cause, and I embrace it totally. Here's my pet cause: national mandatory service. Not necessarily military,
right,
but of some kind. You're 18 years old, you got to serve your country. You on board or not?
Absolutely.
You are? Why would that be a good thing? I know why it'd be a good thing. Why do you think it'd be a good thing?
Well, I think it would change the country if everyone was required to serve, and I think it would reinvigorate our democracy.
How about you?
I don't know that it should be mandatory. Right now, there are 5.5 AmeriCorps applicants for every 1 AmeriCorps slot.
Yes.
And even if you quintupled the size of AmeriCorps, I think you'd actually see demand rise because everyone would realize this is a thing to do. General McChrystal is one of the leaders on this movement, and he talks about a point where we get, as a society, where when you apply for a job when you're 30, the first question you get asked is, where did you serve? Not because it's an obligation, but because it's an expectation.
What's the name of the group? Yours.
New Politics.
Terrific. Can you convince him about the mandatory part?
I work on it.
I know
She's
it.
working on it.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you.
Congressman, it's great to see you.
Take care.
Thanks so much.
Thank
Good
you.
luck with your project. It's
Thank
great.
you.